Hey guys, real quick, before we get this review started, I know I said to review Spyro 2 after it won the overall vote in my last review, but the thing is, I want to get more experience reviewing and get more comfortable with my formula before I go back to that series. I'll do it, I promise, in time. Another thing I'd like to point out is that there are going to be a few things different with my review. Like the, for example, the characters section, that's useless. It's going to be covered in the story element. So don't worry about that. You'll see other ones, like my intro. The intro's going to be gone for a while until I can come up with a new one. Another thing, this is my first review of a PS3 game. I've always strayed away from doing PS3 games before because I never had an HD capture card. And right now all I have is this Roxio. It's not the best quality, but it can get the job done. I've always waited because I wanted to get the best quality for you guys. Right now, I'm going to stick with this little thing. But I promise I will invest in a new capture card. So, that said, let's get on with the review. Who am I? You sure you want to know? This video is not for the faint of heart. My analysis begins with the purchase of a game. It was an anticipated game. Something new, something exciting, something I prayed to God wasn't garbage. This is my story. Okay, just to get this out of the way, I love Spider-Man. I've watched the animated series, to the other animated series, to the Sam Raimi movies, to the other animated series, to the Disney... Yeah, anyways. I love Spider-Man. I just haven't really been a big comic book reader. Don't get me wrong, I've read my fair share of comic books over the years. I even own the full story of Kraven's Last Hunt. It's a good read, and I recommend it to anyone looking for a new comic. So, with Sony rebooting the Spider-Man movie franchise, it'd only be necessary if the movie tie-in games follow along. Before, the movie tie-in games were developed by Treyarch, the company mainly known for some of the Call of Duty games. With this reboot, production of the games was handed over to a company known as Beanix. Beanix was known for handling many PC ports, including Spider-Man. Their first original Spider-Man game was Shattered Dimensions. Fun fact, this game was actually the first game I ever pre-ordered, and when the game finally came out, I rushed to my nearest GameStop to pick it up. So, did Beanix make something worth that pre-order? Well, first let's start with the plot. Keep in mind that this is a non-canon epilogue to the first Amazing Spider-Man film. Warning, I'm spoiling this plot for all it's got, so don't watch this review if you haven't played the game yet.
Peter, what are you doing here? I'm here to get you out of this asylum.
The story starts out with Spidey and Dr. Kurt Connors talking about something bad. As to why he's in an asylum? Well, you'd understand that if you watch the movie. And now we're in control of Peter Parker. Well, not really. All I can do is move the camera. Gwen brought Peter to Oscorp because she thinks that they're continuing Connors' research on cross-species genetics. So she sneaks Peter into the multi-billion-dollar company in hopes of finding proof. And what do you know? They find it. After the Beast rampages into the electrified wall, Peter and Gwen are confronted by Alistair Smythe, the new director of Oscorp, who questions why they're even there. I didn't think it was a big deal, since everyone that walked by didn't really care who we were. Smythe explains that instead of humans being turned into animals, they've injected animals with human DNA.
No more humans turning into animals like Connors did. But what you see here is what happens when an animal gets a nice dose of human DNA. Here, follow me. I trust you'll keep everything you see in the strictest confidence.
Eventually, a cross-species senses Peter's blood, being a cross-species himself, and attempts to break free.
It's breaking the glass! It's breaking out!
This is my fault. I shouldn't have brought you here.
Why are you guys just spinning in a circle? Get the hell out of there! You're Spider-Man, for God's sakes!
How do we open this thing? No!
Section 313.
Wait, what? He was just in his suit the entire time? No. We clearly saw that he was wearing his street clothes a second ago, but whatever. I'm going to accept that Spider-Man now has quick change as a new power. After rescuing an infected Gwen, Spidey goes to break out Connors in order to develop a cure, and lets the entire asylum out during the process. My God, Spidey. First you unleash a cross-species virus into the world, now this? Come on, man! The two head back to Peter's apartment to set up a little mini lab to create a cure. But all the files Connors worked with are on a tablet back at Oscorp. One boss fight later and we're back at Oscorp. Here's where we meet Whitney Chang. Okay, well, technically we already met her during the first boss fight, but this is where we get to actually meet her. Whitney is a reporter on the news that also serves as part of the gameplay, but more on that later. I just don't like her character. Everything she says just comes out as a cringeworthy attempt at humor, and it's just annoying.
You forgetting something?
Oh, I don't normally give out my number to mass vigilantes if that's what you mean.
Shut up! Here, she's undercover trying to get photos for her news story on the continued experiments. How'd she even hear about this? Rumors, I guess? An excuse to have this character in the plot? Spidey launches her out of danger and meets up with her again down the hall. Since Spidey now has her camera, she instructs you to take pictures for her.
Really working for that promotion, huh, Chang? Dumb bitch.
After meeting up with Whitney again later in the level, she agrees to help you get the tablet, while at the same time, Spidey has to defend her from snipers in a segment that I swear to God is broken up the ass. When she gets a tablet, Whitney's shot in the arm, and Spidey gives her a ride to the exit. I still feel like this character could have been taken out of the plot, and it would have affected nothing in this section. If she was out, Spidey could just sneak around and get the tablet himself. We come back to Connors, who's already set up a proper lab in Peter's apartment.
Where'd you get the money?
I used the credit card.
Credit card?
Yes, there was one on the bookshelf. You said it yourself. We need to turn this place into a proper lab.
But how much did you spend?
What? Oh, I'm not sure. I just used it till it didn't work anymore. Don't worry. I only need one more thing.
Don't say a jacuzzi.
While checking in on Gwen, Spidey ends up having a conversation with Smythe. He tells Smythe that they're working on a cure, but Smythe says that he's been working on a cure of his own containing nanobots, which are his life's work. But in order for it to work, the nanobots have to eliminate the host. Sounds more like a poison. On the way to collecting the DNA sample for Connors to make an antidote, we come across people who are already infected with the virus. Think of zombies, but half-mutated animal. And vomit. Lots of vomit. 2 boss fights later, and we get the sample. But suddenly giant robot! Another boss fight later, and we're back at the apartment, where Connors is putting the finishing touches on his antidote that he says will theoretically work. While in another Skype call with Gwen, we get to see the virus take over as one of the doctors goes completely batshit insane and attacks Gwen. The robots are programmed to kill anyone with a hefty amount of cross pieces in them, so they go after the doctor. Does he die? Well, we don't know. I'll say he's dead.
She'll be all right, Peter.
Yeah.
Gwen's a
Dead.
strong girl.
With the antidote finally finished, Spidey heads back to Oscorp to cure the remaining survivors. When we finally get to Wait, did it freeze? Oh, there we go. Weird. Anyways, Spider-Man gives the cure to Gwen, but like the asshole he is, Smythe takes the cure and convinces Gwen that if anyone should risk it, it should be him. The cure ends up paralyzing Smythe rather than curing him. Smythe ends up programming his robots to kill only Spider-Man instead of cross pieces in general. And not just these robots. No.
I need to talk to him. Now! What the? Okay, buddy. You're trying to scare me. It's working.
Bullshit!
Once back at the apartment, Spider-Man tells Connors that he done messed up and endangered the population even more thanks to an angry Smythe. Spidey eventually passes out, with Connors figuring out the missing piece of the puzzle. Since Peter was never completely taken over by his cross-pieces infection, his clean blood was the key to finishing the antidote, while at the same time, Smythe finishes his cure containing nanobots. Smythe tries to test it on the remaining survivors, with Gwen escaping from her life, but she's eventually found and disconnected. Spidey heads back to Oscorp yet again to find that the scientists are still alive, but surrounded by bots with Gwen nowhere to be found. Eventually, he finds the scientists, beats the boss, then he's swarmed by more bots than Mr. Krabs over here. Krabs ends up saving Spidey, allowing him to teleport over to the scientists and give them some of the cure.
Let's hope so. It stings.
Since Krabs didn't kill Spidey, he immediately realizes that Gwen must have sent it. So rushing to her daring rescue, she's dead.
You did it. I have the cure. Gwen.
Peter, that is the cheesiest speech I've ever heard.
Gwen! You're...
Oh, why?
One boss fight later, my god, look at all this filler, and we're back at the apartment. We find Connors complaining about redeeming himself to his family or something. I don't care, honestly. This is the second or third time that he's brought them up and changed the subject immediately after. If his family's side story was somehow merged into the main story, then maybe. Maybe I would give a damn. Anyways, our new mission's clear. Get the stuff that made Peter Spider-Man so we can make an antidote and rush it back to the lab. But first we have to stop a bank robbery. Nothing really happens here. You fight Black Cat, who escaped from the asylum. Yeah, I remember that, dumbass. And the only thing she serves in terms of plot is the location to the spider stuff. Other than that, this whole part can be forgotten in terms of story. Back to the main story, we learn that Smythe saw Connors enter Peter's apartment, so now he has Peter Parker and Spider-Man on his to-kill list. With his apartment trashed and Connors missing, Smythe rushes in, and another boss fight. It ends with Smythe telling him that he knows Peter's Spider-Man. A little late to the party, aren't we, Smythe? Okay, I'm going to try and wrap this up because this script's already 8 pages long and it's only just the story. Here we go. Spidey gets back to Oscorp to find out that Smythe has taken total control. Turns out that the cure that crippled him also made him go completely insane, focusing on how he will save the city. Smythe believes that the world doesn't need a cure, rather a weapon. In the process of saving Connors, Spidey suddenly ambushed but manages to get Connors to escape. After getting knocked out, Spider-Man wakes up being hung upside down by Smythe, telling him that he will be the test subject for his nanobot cure. Smythe injects him with the serum and Spidey screams in pain as the poisonous robots infect his bloodstream. He then suits up Big Hero 6 style and throws Spidey into another room filled with robots, but they don't attack him. Spider-Man is no longer a cross species, he's just Peter Parker. After nearly escaping death in a platforming section that I swear is also broken up the ass, we find our way back to New York, which has been turned into an apocalyptic hellspawn. With the nanobot-infected Spidey, Connors calls him to explain that the lab was moved down to the sewers because it's safer than the surface. This guy, this one-armed guy, moved all the lab stuff down to the sewers. By himself. He even brought Peter's wardrobe. Jeez, forget do whatever a spider can. This guy's the real superhero. With the antidote finally finished, Connors decides to turn himself back into the lizard since Peter isn't strong enough to stop Smythe. I'm sure it'll work out fine. Right in the middle of Connors and Gwen fighting, Spidey takes his final breaths and dies. Just kidding! What, you thought this bastard was dead? No, we still got a sequel to get to. Anyways, Gwen brings Peter back to life by medical magic and Spidey sets out to stop Smythe once and for all. But Peter is still just Peter. How's he gonna get there? Suddenly Chang! Yep, Wendy Chang stops by in a helicopter for whatever reason and gives Peter a ride. Pretty much the only important she'll be in this plot. But what happens when he gets there? He's still just Peter. Well, apparently, Gwen tells him that in order to get his powers back, Peter needs to electrocute himself with enough power to fry the nanobots in his bloodstream.
Are you serious? Let's pull the plug on this thing. This is gonna be easy. This is not gonna be easy!
After teaming up and delivering the final blows to Smythe, Connors loses control at the last second and attacks Spidey. He escapes the destruction so he doesn't hurt him again, with Spidey saving Smythe in the process. Here we get to see Smythe finally realize what a dumbass he was for thinking destructive robots were a cure.
Without my robots, I can't save the city.
My god, this guy and his robot fetish. With Smythe being taken away, Spidey heads off to punch some sense into Connors. The hell? Is that a Zora from Zelda? Yeah, you see some pretty weird things down in the sewer. After fighting robots after robots after robots after other stuff, we finally meet up with Gwen and her robot. She's programming the robot to spread the cure all around New York. Here we have another defense section that quickly brought back anxiety from the last time, but thankfully this one's a lot more stable. So, what happened here? After rescuing her from swarms of lizards, we're given a sweet scene between Peter and Gwen.
Thanks.
You saved me. Twice in one day.
Well, what's the point of saving the world if Gwen Stacy's not in it?
The robot. I loaded it with enough serum to... yeah.
Nice way to change the subject.
Someone has to keep you focused.
I appreciate it.
So, what do we do about Connors?
Checked him with some of this good stuff, then spread it to the city.
Sorry. I had to do it. Now.
So, at the end of the road, we find Connors, cure him, bring him back, and happily ever after. So, in terms of story, the game does pretty okay. It's definitely nothing spectacular, and I'm pretty sure some things could have been altered or changed, but overall, it was okay. Good epilogue plot. I gotta say, I thought it was really cool to have classic Spider-Man villains as actual mutations. Before they were just guys in suits, but here they've taken a more realistic approach, and I think the change is pretty cool. Don't get me wrong, I still love the old stuff. This is just pretty neat. Now, on to gameplay. With Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions and Edge of Time doing pretty well in the combat systems, fans were demanding another free roam game. The last free roam game that we got was Web of Shadows, and that was in 2008. For this game, Phoenix decided to put the camera closer to Spider-Man to make the player actually feel like they were web swinging. It gives a real sense of speed and excitement when you blaze through the city streets. When stationary, the close camera gives me a Resident Evil 4 vibe. In other games, you'd have to let go of the swing button, maybe to do a trick or something, and then press the button again to shoot out another web. Here, players just have to hold down one button the entire time in order to swing, and Spidey will automatically do the rest for you. It's a good change for newcomers and those uncomfortable with fast 3D games, but if all I'm doing is holding down a button and moving the analog stick, I might as well be driving a car. You can increase your height and speed by letting go and shooting out a web at the right time, but other than that, you're just driving the good old Spidey-mobile. When you're not blazing through the city, you're indoors, casually swinging on two webs. It's like the old Spider-Man games where you just shoot up a web and bam, you're swinging. For combat, well, if you've played any of the Arkham games, then this will be familiar territory for you. The devs took some heavy inspiration from Rocksteady's free-flow combat system and added it to Spidey's arsenal. When surrounded by a group of goons, players can start up a combo with the action button, and from there, you can link it up with other goons and continue the combo chain. When the prompt on Spidey's head flashes, pressing the counter button will immediately interrupt your current state to counter the enemy's attack and keep the pace going. This makes a bit more sense here than it did in the Batman games. Let me explain. When I played the Arkham games and saw this prompt, I kept thinking of it as a spider sense of some kind. Here, it actually works. Spidey sense warns him of an attack. Batman just heard the guy moving or something. I never understood it. But that doesn't mean this game did the combat better. One big problem that I had with this game was the fact that the counter prompt flashes on Spider-Man's head instead of the enemy he wants to attack. This messes me up because if the goon gets in the camera and blocks out Spidey, I can't see if the prompt is showing or not. Another is that in Batman, the combos and attacks chained together perfectly. Everything was smooth, responsive, and fast-paced. Look at this! Here, things tend to get a bit janky at points. It just feels a tad bit clunky and really stiff. That doesn't mean it's not fun. It's actually really fun. The most satisfying thing to do with Spidey's combat is finishing them off. After knocking them around a couple times, a new prompt will appear above the enemy's head. This means that by pressing the right button, Spidey will immobilize the goon, making it easier to handle the rest. One of the newest additions to Spidey's new additions is the Web Rush feature. Tapping the button will have Spidey do an assortment of tricks to reach a destination, whether it be swinging on poles or running on cars or bouncing off walls, you name it. The console you're playing on will automatically determine how to do it and when to do it. Holding down the button will show you every possible location you can travel to and any object you can interact with. A flashing red object indicates that Spider-Man can use that object to stun nearby goons. It can also be used to do stealth takedowns or bounce off of enemies. It's a really useful feature when trying to plan out your strategy. Will you go in wreaking havoc and come out as the victor, or will you plan a tactic to get everyone down without alerting anyone? Along the road, you can purchase upgrades to make a more versatile Spider-Man. Things include faster stun power, stronger web, better silent takedowns, longer web rush, etc., etc. Now, with all these new skills, fighting mechanics, upgrades, and whatnot, you're probably asking yourself, well, where will most of the action take place? Think of the game's structure like this. Manhattan is basically your hub world. It's a place to swing around, fight occasional bosses, collect comic book pages, and do side missions. Remember Whitney Chang? Yeah. Since she made you take photos for her news story, her camera becomes part of multiple side missions. All you have to do is read the clues that it gives you and snap a photo. Simple enough. Now, with Manhattan being your hub, the rest of the game's story segments happen in these separate levels. These take place mainly in Oscorp or the sewers. Here, your jumping height is vastly reduced, and web swinging is reverted to the 1-2 shoot. The boss fights are a little hit and miss for me. I guess I'll start with the bad stuff. The one thing I really didn't like about the cross-species battles was that they all blended together. Nothing stood out to me other than, hey, it's Scorpion. It's just the same punch, dodge, retreat, rinse and repeat. That goes for the final boss too. See this? This is the whole fight. Even the boss battle with Smythe wasn't really that exciting. It only stood up because it was a different kind of boss. Here's the fight. See what I mean? The boss fights that I really liked were the ones with the giant robots. These stood out. Why? Look at it! It's a big-ass robot! Now these are a challenge. Soaring through the city and fighting huge robots are a highlight for me. It's different almost every time. Energetic, fast-paced, full of action, stressing moments, it's all there, folks. Now on to the final part. Presentation. For a game that came out in 2012, it looks okay. It's really not the prettiest Spider-Man game out there. I guess I was just spoiled with games that had better graphics at the time, like Uncharted 3, Arkham City, and Sonic Unleashed. Spidey's suit is the most detailed thing in the game. You see each individual thread, it's really eye-catching. But that's it, really. The rest of the environment looks bland, mediocre. The textures of the building are just boring and meshed. This also applies to the separate levels. I saw a video of the PC version of this game with every setting maxed out. It still didn't help. His costume looked more detailed, but I wish I could say the same about everything else. There are times where the frame rate just drops, for no real reason. If the screen is clustered with goons and other objects, yeah, I can understand it. But if I'm in a boss fight that's running really smoothly and all of a sudden the frames drop to utter ass, it's gonna raise an eyebrow. It didn't really happen frequently, so my enjoyment of the game wasn't butchered. The voice acting is again hit and miss for me. I enjoyed Sam Riegel's performance as Spider-Man. He was convincing, emotional, and involved with his character. Carrie Walgren as Gwen could have done a bit better in my opinion. It's not her fault. She does a good job at expressing more and more emotion into her character's voice. It's the models that make it seem awkward and jagged. Everyone just kind of looks like a wax figure. There's rarely ever any emotion expressed on their faces.
Yes, you owe me $1.
I'll write you a check.
The only time I really see any emotion is the close-up with Smythe. Every other close-up just has heads and arms flailing around. Nolan North does a great job as always. I love his work in other games like Uncharted and Deadpool. So overall, voice acting was good. Could have been better, honestly, but good. Now, before we end this review, I'd like to take a look at the Vita version of the game. On November 19, 2013, a year after the game's initial release, PlayStation users got their hand on the Vita version of the game. Unlike the 3DS version, it's the same open-world console game, just in your hands. It's really incredible how this shows off the power of the Vita, but it's not the greatest version. It suffers from major frame rate issues. The textures and models are lowered in quality tremendously, and this is pretty much the glitchiest version of the game. So, I'd stick with the console version. Only pick this up if you have a Vita and really want to experience the game. So, what should you do with the game? Shelve it? Or trash it? Well, even though the visuals weren't really the greatest and the music wasn't the most memorable of pieces, I still had a blast with the combat, web swinging, and overall narrative. There are better Spider-Man games out there, but this one does a fine job for what it is. So, shelve it. Hey everyone, thanks for watching my review of The Amazing Spider-Man for the PS3 and Vita, I guess. This video did take longer than I initially meant for it to take because I had some stuff to do in school and some family things I had to take care of and this, that, and that. I don't want to really get into it. But yeah, I didn't really mean for this video to take as long as it did. There's just conflicts and my computer died, so I had to move everything to my laptop and start over. But yeah, if you want... Anyways. Thanks for watching. If you want to watch another one of my videos, click here to watch a video I did on a bootleg Sega Genesis console. It's personally one of my favorites. I think that one just still makes me laugh. And if you want to go further, click the other video to watch a review I did of Spyro the Dragon. That was one of my first reviews on this channel. So anyways, hope to see you guys in the next video. I'm going to get to working on a new script right now. Alright, see ya.
So then I told the hooker,